always do the thumbnail first. I feel like I've seen a lot of people lately doing their thumbnails like this. And I feel like that's kind of a scam. Like, you don't know what books are going to be in here if I do it this way. I like to know what books they're going to be talking about before I click on the video. But it must not be true. Other people must not feel that way, because otherwise why would everyone else do it? I don't know. Okay, so a couple of book videos ago, I talked about how I was going to the beach and I wanted to start reading books about where I'm going or what season it is, and it was a lie. Because by the time I had said that, I had already been reading my fall TBR, because for me personally, fall starts August 1st. It doesn't matter that it's 90 degrees outside. It doesn't matter that you're still knee deep in summer. For me, fall is just August until exactly October 31st, and then it's winter for like 6 months. I don't know why. I don't make the rules. I do think I'm not unique in this, because a lot of the like aesthetic cool girl vloggers I watch, they were already fall. Like, they've been fall for weeks and weeks and weeks. So I have also been fall for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I've read most of my fall TBR already. I just wanted to wait to make the video. It's already fall. We're in fall. We all agree that it's fall. Okay, so I do go into books blind. I didn't know anything about any of these books, and a lot of them ended up being like juvenile fiction and young adults, which I did not expect. I don't usually read, but it ended up being okay. I'm going to talk about these books in the order of like the age of the intended audience. So I will start with the juvenile fiction and move forward, and that's kind of the reading order I did as well, because I wanted to move from like fall books to spooky season books. Okay, let's get started. So the first book I read is Howl's Moving Castle by Diane Wynne Jones. And like, look at the cover. This is beautiful. So this is obviously a movie from Studio Ghibli. I have never seen any of those films. I know I would like them. I should. I just haven't. I don't know. And while I haven't seen any of those movies, I do have like the still frames from like my Tumblr days in my brain. So I did picture all of those visuals while I was reading this book, and I thought it was fine. It is very much like an age 7 to 11 little fantasy magic book. So Howl's Moving Castle is the story of Sophie, who's the oldest sister in this group of sisters. She makes hats. She gets a spell cast on her that turns her into an old lady, and she seeks the help of Howl, who is a wizard. And like, the story kind of unravels from there. It was a really cute story. I really enjoyed the magic system and how that was portrayed. I really liked the characters. I thought they were all really sweet and cute. If I had one critique, it would be that this story ends. I'm not going to do any spoilers in this video, but this story ends with like everything wrapped up all too conveniently. Like, there are like 3 pages left in this book, and you're like, how are they gonna? And then it's like, oh, everything was wrapped up very neatly. Okay. And that's very unsatisfying as an adult, but I feel like kids would really like it. So I'm not going to take any points off for that. As a fall book, it was really nice. The weather was descriptive. There was a little fire. It was very fall vibes. I feel magic in itself is a very fall thing. 10 out of 10 as a fall book. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't recommend it to adults unless you either really like the film or you were going to read it aloud to a child. But it was still really nice. Next on my list is The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury, and just another great cover. So again, I have read a lot of Ray Bradbury. I did not expect this to be a young adult book, but it definitely is. So this is the story of 8 trick-or-treaters who they kind of have to deal with the devil. That's the story. If I was remaking my video on books that feel like The Twilight Zone, this is definitely a Twilight Zone episode. It's a really short, nice little, again, middle grade book. It's just about some boys trick-or-treating. It has Goonies vibes. It does feel very fallish. Of course, they're trick-or-treating. Of course, there are very spooky things. They talk to death. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend that one to adults, especially if you like Ray Bradbury or you like spooky stories. You could knock through this in an afternoon. It was very fall-y. I did really like it. Again, the ending is exactly what you expect it to be, though. But that's because it's a children's book. It's fine. Next on my list is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. And I did not expect this to be a children's book. I have read a book by T. Kingfisher before. It was earlier this year. It was called A House with Good Bones, and that was definitely not a children's book. So I liked A House with Good Bones. It also had like a supernatural element, and I really liked that component of it. I liked the world. I didn't really like the characters, and I especially didn't like the like snarky dialogue of the characters. I thought it was really cringy. But because I liked the world so much and the magic it set up, I was like, I will give this author another chance. Exact same problem with this book. So this book, right on the back, it says 14-year-old Mona isn't like the wizards charged with defending the city. Of course, it's a young adult novel. It's about a 14-year-old. Why didn't I know? Because I don't read the backs of books. I just buy the books. That's my problem. That's on me. But let me finish reading this to you. She can't control lightning or speak to water. Her familiar is a sourdough starter, and her magic only works on bread. She has a comfortable life in her aunt's bakery, making gingerbread men dance. And that's it. That's the story. Again, I really liked the magic system. I like that a wizard has a familiar that is a sourdough starter. That's really, really interesting. I liked the world it set up. I liked the magic system. The characters were so bad. If it sounded interesting to you, I would recommend T. Kingfisher. I fly through her books. They're really fun to read. I don't want to be mean. I always think the dialogue is really cringy. This is also a children's book. Exactly what you think is going to happen happens. You don't even have to read it. You know what's going to happen. It's fine. It did feel really folly. I did like the little magic system. Right on it, it says Best Young Adult Book Winner. What is wrong with me? Okay, next on this list is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. Now, this is a compilation of his stories and essays, and I only read Sleepy Hollow and Rip Van Winkle inside this book because I just wanted to see what Washington Irving was like. This book I put in like the young adult section just because I feel like that's a book you would read in high school. So it's like a high school student book. Was it good? Absolutely not. So The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is of course not really a scary story. It's about like just what I've learned, this just like asshole guy who's like mean to women and they kind of scare him out of town. And that's kind of it. And I didn't really enjoy it. I also read Rip Van Winkle and I was like, oh, this is exactly what you would think would happen. And this is my problem with reading older stuff like this. Like Washington Irving is supposed to be one of the great American like short story writers, and I'm just like, really? But it's that problem where it's like this was very formative and informative for future short stories, but me reading it after having read 100 years worth of short stories, it's just not as compelling to me. It just wasn't very interesting. And also, I've already seen the Disney movie. I've already seen the Johnny Depp movie. So it wasn't as good as either of those, even though I don't really like either of those. And so it was just kind of boring to read. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is it. I'm not sure I would read anything else in here. But let me know if there's like some really good Washington Irving I should read, because I will check it out because I do like reading classics. Next, we're moving into, these are actually books for adults that I read. We're moving into more ghosty stories, spooky stories. And I should mention, I don't get scared by books that often, but I also don't seek out scary books. I think the scariest book I ever read is House of Leaves, which I know is everyone's scariest books. I find houses changing size, things that vary in perspective based on where you are in the building, very scary. Like that just as a concept is very scary to me. And so going in, I knew I was already going to be scared of that book, but I still found it very scary. I also thought Annihilation was very scary. So I am unprepared to read scary stories. And I kind of just picked some ghosty, witchy, magic-y books that I thought would be good. I wasn't intending to buy scary books, but maybe like recommend some below. Maybe I would like to be scared by books. Okay, so next on my list, Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. Now, obviously, I hate this cover, by the way. I think this is very ugly. Obviously, this is a movie called Practical Magic with Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman, and I love that movie. And I do watch it every year, and the book was pretty different from the movie. So Practical Magic is about two sisters who have grown up in this family of witches, and it kind of just talks about their lives as witches. There is something that starts the plot that the whole family has to get together and deal with, and they use some magic, but really it's about sisterhood, I think. And I love the movie. I also really liked the book, but the book was a little bit different. I'm gonna pretend that you've seen the movie. Surely you've seen the movie. I don't know. In the movie, Sandra Bullock has these children, and they're like young kids, and they live at their aunt's house, which are the two older witches. In the book, she has teenage children, and they've moved away. So they've moved away from the spooky little Massachusetts town. So the whole book is kind of not set in a spooky little Massachusetts town, which I think is a flaw, because I want it to be spooky and Massachusettsy. But in the book, the two teenagers, they had like a really interesting sister moments as well. And I thought that was really nice. That's not what happens in the movie. I did really like this book. It was very folly. The magic was really fun. I love to read about sibling love. I feel like you don't get that a lot in books. And it was very folly, and I did enjoy it. I don't think I would continue the series, and I definitely think the movie is better. So, okay, so next is The Ghost in the House. The Ghost in the House, obviously, by Sarah O'Leary. I've already made a video about this book, and I loved it. It's about a ghost in the house. A woman wakes up 5 years in the future, and she finds out she's a ghost, and she's been dead for 5 years. It's great. Well, how did I describe it? I said it was like Beetlejuice if that movie was written by Steven Spielberg, and I stand by that. I really enjoyed this. I hope you can find it. It's Canadian. I bought it on Thrift Books. It's an old library copy, but I really liked it. Okay, moving on. So this was like a really long list of books, and I've had a great time reading all these fall books. Moving on. Penance by Eliza Clark. So let me just read the back to you. It's been nearly a decade since the horrifying murder of 16-year-old Joan Wilson rocked the small seaside town of Crow-on-Sea. Now journalist Alex Z. Corelli has constructed what he claims is the definitive account of the crime. It's a riveting snapshot of a life scarred by tragedy in a town left in turmoil. The only question is how much of this story is true. I really like the cover on this. No spoilers. This is a book about true crime, and it's supposed to make you understand like the issues with true crime and how it kind of re-victimizes victims, and it's not really like bringing light to a situation. It's more of an exploitation, and I already know that because I don't like true crime already. I think I've talked about this on a video before. I don't listen to those podcasts. I don't read true crime. So already this book, like I already agree with the premise, so it didn't need to convince me. So I did feel that for me, that part fell a little flat. But if you do like have this like guilty pleasure of true crime, I think this would mean more to you. But I did really enjoy this book. Eliza Clark is an author that's been on my radar for a while, and this is my first book that I've read of hers. She also wrote Boy Parts, which I also want to read. I really liked it. I really liked the way this story, I want to say storyboarded, because this really felt like you were reading a movie. Like you're told different parts in different timelines through different characters' voices, and it was a really interesting story. I had already guessed the way it was gonna go, but I still really enjoyed it, and I thought the characters felt really real, even though we're being told a version of events from a very unreliable narrator. And that in itself was really interesting. I flew through this book. I stayed up until like 1 a.m. to finish it, and I really enjoyed it. I would say it's a touch too long. Just did this need to be 500 pages? But I would recommend it. The reason I thought it was a fall book is because I feel like true crime is very folly. I feel like reading about kids in school and their relationships are very folly, just like back to school. And you know, true crime is horrible. And so it's a horror book. So that was a really big recommend for me. I don't know if I would read it again, but I really did like it, and I will definitely read Eliza Clark again. Next on this TBR was The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, a book I have already talked about in a video. I did not care for this book. This is a book about final girls. Like, it's honestly kind of similar to Penance, where it's kind of commenting on true crime and how the media is complicit in crimes and exploitation of victims. I didn't really vibe with this book. It was fine. Some of it was kind of funny. It was a really fast-paced. I enjoyed Grady Hendrix writing. I will definitely read more from him, but this fell flat for me, and I didn't really like it. It also didn't do what it said it was going to do. I imagined this whole book being therapy sessions, and it just wasn't. They were only in therapy like one time. So there's that. So I have 3 books left, and they are all books I have not read yet. So I don't know. Like I said, I go into books blind. I don't know. So we'll see. But actually, this next book is my first DNF of the year. DNF means did not finish. I don't know. I'm trying to be a booktuber. I don't know. So here's the thing. I go into books blind. You know this. I've said this. And you tell me Pet Semetery, and I'm like, okay, zombie pets. Perfect. And I started reading this book, and I said, oh my goodness. And I had to go ask someone to read the Wikipedia page to tell me if what I thought was going to happen was going to happen. Because if that was the case, I am not reading any more of this book. And what I thought was going to happen was going to happen. And I'm sure you know, I feel like the plot of Pet Semetery is just in the world. Like, people have seen the movie, they know. I didn't know. And now I know. And I absolutely will not read this. No, thank you. I don't want that in my life. This is going right back to the thrift store. Absolutely not. I actually confused this book when I bought it. I hate the cover, by the way. I hate when they talk about movies on the cover. I confused that book with Salem's Lot, which is the only thing I know about Salem's Lot is vampires. And I was like, oh, cool. Vampire book for Halloween. That'll be fun. No. I don't want to spoil it. So I'm not going to say the thing that happens that I do not want to see. So that's not very helpful, is it? I mean, I feel like I should tell you so you can decide whether you want to read the book or not. But also, I feel like it's obvious. I'm not going to say what it is that took me away from that book. But I will say once I realized, I immediately shut it and I was like, nope. So I'm not going to read that. DNF, my first of the year. Next. So I actually started this last night. This is called The Postmortal by Drew Magary. I like Drew Magary a lot. I've read his book The Hike years ago, and it just stuck in my brain. And I wanted to try something else by him. And I also follow him on Blue Sky, where weirdly, he just talks about sports all the time. Just constant sports, which I don't get from the book The Hike that I read. So what an interesting person. I mean, follow him. I recommend it. But this book, I think, like I said, I don't know. This book is about a society in the future that cures death and cures illness and the implications. Like, what happens as a result of that. It should be fun. Let me just read the back to you so we can all have a better idea of what's happening. Imagine a near future where a cure for aging is discovered and, after much political and moral debate, made available to people worldwide. Immortality, however, comes with its own unique problems, including evil green people, government euthanasia programs, and a disturbing new religious cult and other horrors. Witty, eerie, and full of humanity. There we go. An unforgettable thriller, it says. It should be good. I'll enjoy it. And very last on my list, I'm saving for actual closer to Halloween. And I have a whole lot of time left, so recommend me a good Halloween book. But this is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Now this cover, glorious. Look at that. It's all orange and black and beautiful. Let me ask you guys, how do you feel about this? What is this called? Like sprayed edges? I think it looks fine. But when you open the book, this just looks like dirty. This looks like I printed this in a printer at school from 1999. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that looks bad. I don't think I like this sprayed edges, but this book is gorgeous. So, I don't know what this is about. It's about The Haunting of Hill House. It's by Shirley Jackson, who I do really like. I have read... What is that called? We Have Always Lived in the Castle. That's Shirley Jackson, right? And I did find that pretty spooky. And I did like it a lot. And she also wrote The Lottery, right? That's a great story. So I'm sure this will be good. It's about a haunting at a house, I guess. Let me read it for you, just so we can all be on the same page about what this is about. Okay. 4 seekers have arrived at the rambling old pile known as Hill House. Wait, is this a Netflix show? I haven't seen it. I'm not going to watch it. It's fine. Okay. 4 seekers have arrived at the rambling old pile known as Hill House. Dr. Montague, an occult scholar looking for solid evidence of psychic phenomena. Theodora, his lovely and lighthearted assistant. Luke, the adventurous future inheritor of the estate, and Eleanor, a friendless, fragile young woman with a dark past. Why is she there? As they begin to cope with chilling, even horrifying occurrences beyond their control or understanding, they cannot possibly know what lies ahead, for Hill House is gathering its powers, and soon it will choose one of them to make its own. I don't know, I'm kind of less interested now, but I'm going to read it. It should be scary. I like reading scary books, but I do find them more scary than scary movies. I guess because, like, you know when you're watching a scary movie, you can just kind of close your eyes and the scary part's over. Or, like, you know a jump scare is coming, so you can be like... When you're reading a scary book, you can close your eyes, but you just have to open your eyes again and keep reading. So I just find books scarier. Like, my brain is scarier than the movies, I guess. So I hope this scares me a little bit. This will be, like, my Halloween read. But let me know if I have another one. I do have another Stephen King somewhere, because I'm also doing a winter playlist. I wanted to read The Shining, but that felt like a winter book rather than like a Halloween book. I don't know. Let me know what you think. It's my TBR, my fall TBR, and my first DNF of the year. Straight back to the thrift store with Pet Semetery. Absolutely not. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Cool. Okay, wrap it up. Just wrap it up. You're doing great.